They called him cursed. Not because he cried too much or refused to sleep at night, but because his ears were bigger than his head. 2 large ears stretched from both sides of his tiny skull, soft, flappy, and frightening. Like wings. Like punishment. Cover him, his father barked. He will bring shame to this house. They kept the child hidden for few months. And one night, when the moon returned, they wrapped him in old rags, crept silently to the middle of the river, and threw him in. No name. No goodbye. Just a splash. But the river did not take him. Instead, the waters swelled, calmed, and slowly carried the baby downstream, like it understood he was not ready to die. He drifted for hours until he reached the dense, green edge of a forest. There, beneath the tall silk-cotton trees, a pair of glowing eyes watched from the riverbank. A giant cobra. It didn't hiss. It didn't strike. Instead, it slithered around the baby, forming a circle, a shield. Anyone who dared come near that river bend saw the serpent and turned back. Days passed. Until one morning, an elderly woman, bent with age but sharp in spirit, came to fetch firewood. She saw the snake first, then baby's soft cries. Spirit above, she whispered. A river child. The cobra looked at her, then vanished into the trees. And she knew. The child was not cursed. She took him home. Named him Ikenna. But the villagers only called him Big Ears. As Ikenna grew older, the weight of ridicule grew with him. His unusually large ears, once just a curious feature, became the very thing the village children mocked the most. They called him names, laughed behind his back, and even the adults weren't always kind. His mother, the elderly woman who had rescued him from the riverbank all those years ago, watched this with a heavy heart. Though she loved him deeply, she knew she couldn't protect him forever. So one day, she sat by her fire and carefully wove a large cotton cap, thick and wide, just big enough to cover his ears. It may not stop their words, my son, she whispered as she placed it on his hand, but perhaps it will give your heart a bit of peace. Ikenna wore it everywhere. It helped, a little. The teasing never truly stopped, but over time, he learned to walk through the stairs with his head held high. He began to carry himself with quiet strength, the kind that doesn't shout, but speaks volumes. Now, in that same village, the king was facing his own sorrow. His only son, the crown prince, had fallen gravely ill. No herb, no healer, no ritual could wake him from his weak and feverish state. He lay day and night on a bed of animal skins, barely breathing, his skin pale as ash. Many feared the boy would not see the next moon. Desperate, the king summoned the wisest sage in the village, a man older than memory, who spoke rarely but with the weight of ancient knowledge. After whispering prayers into the wind and listening to the spirits for hours, the sage finally spoke. There is but one thing that may save the prince. A ring. A powerful ring of healing. It lies deep within the forest, guarded by a creature not born of man or beast. This creature's size and body changes at will. Short this minute and tall the next minute. This creature wears the ring in a pouch made of animal hide, tied at its waist. But to take the ring, one must face the creature. One must be strong and unafraid of death. The village fell into a hush. This was no ordinary task. The creature had only ever been spoken of in stories. No one had seen it and lived to tell the tale. Many believed it was nothing more than a myth. But the king believed. He sent out a call, an open challenge to every brave soul in the land. Whosoever retrieved the ring would not only be rewarded with gold and land but given the hand of the king's daughter in marriage. A mission. A reward. A risk beyond imagining. Men from far and near came forward, hunters, warriors, even outlaws hoping for redemption. All strong. All proud. All determined. And somewhere, in a quiet corner of the village, sat Ikenna. The boy with the large ears. The boy who no one believed in. Listen. By nightfall, a group of brave hunters and daring young men gathered at the edge of the ancient forest, each clutching a weapon, their faces marked by both courage and uncertainty. They believed the quest for the healing ring would be no more than a spirited adventure. But fate had other plans. Not long into their journey, as the moon cast a pale glow through the thick trees, they stumbled upon something most peculiar, a strange, hunched creature, circling a fire beneath an enormous, twisted tree. Its eyes gleamed like wet coal, and it muttered in an unknown tongue as if chanting an ancient spell. Thinking this was their moment, the men tightened their grips and prepared to charge. But then, Isis, a giant cobra, black as night and longer than a palm tree, slithered out from the shadows. And without warning, it struck. Panic erupted. The creature's attack was so swift, so ferocious, that half the men fled before their feet could catch up with their minds. Some ran so fast, the backs of their heads nearly kissed their heels. Only a few survived to tell the tale. By sunrise, the survivors dragged themselves back to the village, battered, breathless, and pale with fear. They spoke of horrors no man should face. "It's not just a creature guarding the ring," one whispered. "There's a mighty serpent, unlike anything eyes have seen." The news spread like wildfire. And those who had come from far and wide to attempt the challenge, they packed their things and fled before the sun fully rose. "This is more than we bargained for," they said, trembling. "No treasure is worth dancing with death." Word of the serpent's wrath hadn't shaken everyone. Among the few who scoffed at the tale were 3 fearsome warriors, men known throughout the neighboring villages for their brutal strength and unmatched swordsmanship. Their pride was legendary, and their egos even more so. They made a bet among themselves, not just to claim the ring, but to win the heart of the princess as a trophy. To them, it wasn't a mission of healing, it was a contest of glory. Elsewhere in the village, Ikenna sat quietly beside his mother, his oversized cotton cap barely hiding the ears that had become the source of endless mockery. "Mother," he said, his voice low, "I've brought you nothing but shame. I have no friends. No place. No worth. Perhaps it's better I face the forest, and let death have me." His mother's eyes widened with fear. "No, my son, please. Don't say such things. You are all I have," she begged, her voice breaking. But Ikenna's mind was made up. The pain of ridicule had carved a hole so deep, only a journey through the unknown could fill it. If he was to die, at least it would be on his own terms. That night, Ikenna quietly joined the 3 warriors preparing for their march into the forest. When Ikenna stepped forward and declared he wished to accompany them, they burst into fits of laughter. "You! With those ears," one jeered. "He wants to scare the snake with his flapping wings," another added. Still, they let him come. Not out of respect, but out of wicked strategy. In their hearts, they had already decided he would be the bait. The perfect distraction, tossed to the serpent so the rest could make their move. As they set off, Ikenna walked in front of them, silent, calm, but not afraid. It was the middle of the forest. The trees stood tall and quiet, as if they were watching. The air felt strange, cold, like something was waiting. Then suddenly, hisses. A loud hissing sound came from the bushes. The warriors stopped, looked around in fear. Without warning, they all ran and hid, leaving Ikenna alone in the open. They had always planned to use him as bait. From the shadows, the giant cobra appeared. It rose up slowly, its body thick and black, with glowing eyes. The firelight made it look even scarier. One warrior tried to crawl away, but the snake struck and dragged him. Another tried to fight, but the cobra wrapped around him and squeezed. One after the other, the snake hunted them all. Now, only Ikenna remained. He was shaking. His heart pounded. He wanted to run too, but his legs wouldn't move. The cobra turned and came closer. It stopped right in front of him, raised its head again, and opened its mouth wide, ready to bite. But then it stopped. The snake lowered its head slowly and sniffed Ikenna. It stared into his face. Something in its eyes changed. It was the same snake, the very one that protected Ikenna when he was a baby. It had found him crying alone by the riverbank when his real parents threw him away because of his ears. After a short moment, it slithered away. The forest shook gently as it moved. Ikenna stood there, still shaking, but alive. From where Ikenna stood, he saw it, the strange mystical creature. It had been watching from the shadows. It saw the giant cobra leave Ikenna alone, and that made it pause. The creature thought, if the great serpent didn't harm him, there must be something different about this one. So, the creature turned and began to walk away into the deeper part of the forest. But Ikenna saw him, and ran after him with everything he had. "Come back," he shouted. "Don't run." Just as he thought he was close enough, the creature suddenly disappeared. Ikenna stopped in confusion, breathing heavily. Then, he heard a rustle above. He looked up, and there it was, perched on a tree branch, grinning. Ikenna shouted, "Stop playing hide and seek with me." He stepped forward boldly and raised his voice again. "I challenge you to a wrestling match. If I win and your back touches the ground, you'll give me your ring. But if I lose and my back touches the earth, I'll serve you for the rest of my life." The creature paused. No one had ever dared to challenge it before, let alone set terms. But it wasn't afraid. It had never lost. Never fallen. It climbed down slowly, cracking its knuckles and laughing softly. They began to wrestle. At first, Ikenna fought with all his strength. He pushed and pulled. But the creature was strong, too strong. Ikenna started to tire. His arms grew heavy. His knees began to shake. He was nearly at the end of himself when something came to his mind. With a loud grunt, he pulled off the big cotton cap he always wore, the one that covered his massive ears. As soon as the creature saw his ears, it froze. Its eyes widened in shock. It had never seen any human like that. That small moment of surprise was all Ikenna needed. He grabbed the creature with one final push and slammed it to the ground. Back first. Dust flew up. Silence filled the forest. Ikenna had won. He dashed forward and snatched the small animal skin bag hanging from the creature's waist. Inside it, nestled deep in the folds, was the ancient golden ring. His eyes widened the moment he touched it. It felt warm. Almost alive. A strange energy surged through his body. His chest rose with new strength, and for the first time in his life, he felt whole. But the creature had risen. Furious and unwilling to accept defeat, it lunged towards Ikenna with rage in its eyes. Ikenna didn't wait. He slipped the ring onto his finger. In that instant, a powerful glow burst from the ring. The wind howled through the trees. Branches shook violently. Leaves flew into the air like a storm. The dust beneath their feet rose like smoke from the earth. And his large ears began to shrink. The large, mocked ears that had once brought him pain slowly returned to a normal shape. Neat. Balanced. Like everyone else's. The creature charged forward but stopped mid-charge and fell to its knees. Its head bowed low. It knew. The ring had chosen its new master. Ikenna knelt beside the creature and said firmly, "I didn't come here to capture you, nor to steal your freedom. I came only for the ring to save someone in my village." The creature agreed in silence. Without another word, Ikenna stood and made his way back. The forest grew quiet behind him. He walked through the trees, guided only by moonlight, until the sky began to brighten. It was early morning when the villagers saw a figure walking toward the king's palace. At first, no one recognized him. But then someone squinted and gasped, Is that not Ikenna, the boy with the large ears? Another whispered, but he looks different. Where did his ears go? And how did he return alive from that forest? Curiosity turned to amazement as people left their homes, gathering around him. They reached out to touch his shoulder, just to be sure he was real. But Ikenna said nothing. He kept walking, calm and steady, straight to the palace. When he reached the king and his kinsmen, he bowed respectfully and said, "I bring you the ring of power for the crown prince. This same ring healed me of my affliction." They stared at him in silence, unable to believe their eyes. The guards led him to the prince's chambers. The moment the prince wore the ring, his eyes flew open. Strength returned to his body. He sat up, strong and healed. Joy erupted throughout the palace. Drums roared, horns sounded, and dancers filled the square. Word spread like wildfire. The ring healed not just the prince, but many others in the village who had suffered long-term illnesses. The king kept his word. He gave his beautiful daughter, Princess Nena, to Ikenna in marriage. He also granted him a portion of his kingdom to rule as his own. Ikenna shared all he had with his dear mother, the elderly woman who had once found him as a baby near the river, abandoned and alone. Now, he was no longer mocked. He was honored. Ikenna, the child cast away because of his ears, the one ridiculed and left for dead, had become one of the greatest men in the land.
Subscribe to my channel.